Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Dear authors and invited guests, welcome to a technical session 60. On the behalf of Team World S4 2021 and the Global Knowledge Research Foundation, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the fifth International World Conference on a Smart Trends in System Security and Sustainability through Zoom. We are thankful to everyone who present on this platform to go along with us digitally for the conference in these unpredictable circumstances. And also we wish their families to a protected time and we all will pass this soon together. I hope you will enjoy the 2 days of interactive sessions. Now I would like to invite our session chair, Dr. Nilesh V. Thakur. Dr. Nilesh V. Thakur, Thakur sir is presently is working as a professor in the computer science and engineering at a professor of Ramik College of Engineering and Management, Mumbai. He has a 28 years of teaching experience. His research interest area is image and video processing, artificial intelligence and machine learning, data science and analytics, classical and non-classical optimization, and computer vision and robotics, sensor and ad hoc networks. Welcome to you, sir. So now we can start our presentations. Hello.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So we can start the presentations?
Yes, you are very sure.
So now I would like to invite our first presenter. So Zobin, his paper title is a tensor-based submodule clustering for 2D image using first and second induced tensor nuclear norms minimization.
Okay, Zobin, please proceed.
Dear presenter, you can unmute yourself.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Hello, shall I start?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon all. Myself, Jobin Francis, researcher from National Institute of Technology, Calicut. Today, I'm going to present my topic, a tensor-based submodule clustering for 2D images using LHAF induced tensor nuclear norm minimization. Moving on to my introduction. As we all know that clustering is an unsupervised data analysis technique where the objects are grouped on the basis of similarity inherent in the data. A wide variety of applications includes, so it can be used in image segmentation, data mining, object recognition, data reduction, bioinformatics, social network analysis, etc. So these are the major clustering algorithms so far proposed. So we have hierarchical clustering, partition-based clustering, model-based, and we have density-based, grid-based, etc. Even though these algorithms work well, when it comes to high-dimensional problems, these algorithms have failed to address high-dimensional data. Therefore, dimensionality reduction algorithms for high-dimensional data came into existence. Among the dimensionality reduction algorithms, subspace clustering is a well-proven approach, and it can be defined as it finds the underlying subspaces in the high-dimensional data space. So the below given figure is an example of a large high-dimensional space where the objects are being grouped into different subspaces based on the similarity in between them. As you can see that there is one plane and 3 different lines. Based on the similarity between the data points and subspaces, the large dimensional data space are being organized into or mapped onto different subspaces. So the clustering algorithms based on union of subspaces model have been widely employed and produced very good results. Even though UFS model produced very good results, they have been working by vectorizing the data. means they could not preserve the spatial structure of the data such as images or videos. And as a result, union of free submodule concept came into existence. So it is that in this, an element in a submodule can be represented as a T-linear combination of other members. It is known as a self-expressiveness property. See, for example, it can be represented as, if we consider a three-dimensional vector like x, y, z in a three-dimensional space, it can be represented by using the standard basis. I mean, the linear combination of the standard basis, like x into 1, 0, 0 plus y into 0, 1, 0 plus z into 0, 0, 1, etc. Likewise, an image in a submodule can be represented as a linear combination of other elements in the same submodule. So in place of the simple linear coefficients, we will be getting the linear coefficients as 2 or more 3 fibers as in the figure. So the self-expressive property when it comes to tensor domain, you consider 3 clusters where 3 submodules. See, for the sake of simplicity, you might consider as a red, green, and blue. Let us consider one image or one data point belongs to red cluster can be represented by using the figure given in the left side. Like, see, you can see that some linear coefficients given here in the mode sum of 2 fibers. Some of them are reddish in color, which are non-zero 2 fibers, and the grayish or the whitish color represents what these are the 0 value 2 fibers. So for this represents like for one particular image, we will be getting a unique set of linear coefficient like this. So this is for the entire data set. It will be taking the form of a tensor. So that self-expressive property means that there exists a tensor y is equal to y into z. So the method by making use of UFS model means, first of all, we need to stack the input images to be clustered as the lateral slice of a tensor y. And from that self-expressiveness representation, we need to extract one tensor with a low multi-rank constraint and a accurate block diagonal structure. However, low multi-rank is non-convex such that we are using the strong convex surrogates TNN as I have given it in definition number 2. So based on UFS model, we have one method that is structure constrained low rank submodule clustering. That is existing method by using UFS model. It is given in equation number 2. That is the first term, that is C nuclear norm, which will be giving the low multi-rank constraint. Second one is the dissimilarity matrix multiplied with its frontal slices. Last one is for minimizing the representation error. So after finding the low dimension representation with the low multi-rank constraint, we will be applying spectral clustering and an affinity matrix is finding out. So the key concept of any of the dimensional reduction algorithm is first finding a low dimension representation of the data point, and from the low dimension representation, performing any of the clustering methods obtain low dimension or this low dimension representation. However, the challenges in the existing method in TNN as well as in the submodule structure constraint, L1 norm has been used. However, L1 norm is found to be loose approximation of L0 regularization, and in some areas, L1 minimization was found to be ended up with suboptimal solution. Hence, the proposed method seeks an alternative way to obtain more sparse solution and a low tensor multi-rank for the representation tensor set. So, in the LQ regularization, L-half regularization has found that when we are minimizing the value of Q from 1 to 0, it will be yielding more sparser solution. So, like from the unit mode representation that is given in the figure D, that is nothing but the unit mode representation of L-half regularization. It is given, already realized that L-half regularization will be providing more sparser solution than L1 regularization. That's why we have incorporated L-half regularization in the expression of TNN. So that here we are proposing a new norm that is L-half induced tensor nuclear norm by adapting the properties of or the capabilities of L-half induced TNN. So we know that we can represent any tensor in form of tensor singular value decomposition as x equal to u into sigma into v transpose. Here u and v transpose has nothing but the orthogonal tensors. So here the importance is the tensor as the middle. That is, it's an F-diagonal tensor where its frontal slices contains only the diagonal elements. So each frontal slice will be giving it's an identity matrix. We will be giving the diagonal matrices, diagonal values. So we will be working on the diagonal matrices. That is, we are applying that L-half regularization on the diagonal elements. So by using this expression given in here, by using a half thresholding operator. So by and a detailed procedure is given in my paper. And after we are like optimizing this expression by using the half thresholding function. We will be again multiplying u into s sigma into v transpose, and we will be getting a thresholded tensor set by using L-half induced TNN. So the aspect proposed in my proposed method is L-half induced TNN is proposed, and L1 norm is replaced with L-half regularization, and submodel structural constraint is transformed. And using the capabilities of L-half induced TNN and L-half regularization, an optimization problem is formulated. So this is our proposed optimization equation, in which the L1 norm L-half TNN is replaced with L-half induced TNN. L1 norm structural constraint has been replaced with L-half norm regularization. And see, this is being the solution is found out using augmented Lagrangian method. So the constraint problem now can be solved using augmented Lagrangian method. Right now, this is the unconstrained equation where G1 and G2 are the Lagrangian multipliers. Mu is the augmented penalty term. Then we are going for the ADMM based solution where we are taking one tensor at a time by keeping another constant. We are taking the Q update first. That is in equation number 11, and the solution is given in equation number 13. Similarly, if you are going for the R update, equation number 14 can be solved using equation number 16. Likewise, we have the update for Z as mentioned in equation number 18. And finally, all these updates or the algorithms can be summarized in algorithm number 1. And finally, the algorithm to terminate, we are checking the convergence condition. So this is the total optimization algorithm using ADMM. So the clustering experiments are implemented on 3 datasets using COIL20, UCSD, and MNIST datasets. The state-of-the-art clustering algorithms, we have K-means, spectral, SSMC to WTNN. And the evaluation metrics that we have considered, we have MCR, purity, ARI, and NMI. MCR is nothing but the misclustering rate where the low values indicates the sound performance. Whereas for NMI, ARI, and purity values are normalized in the value of 0 to 1. High values indicate the sound performance. Based on that, a quantitative comparison using purity has been done, where the best results are highlighted in bold. Comparing with the existing method, the proposed method obtained better purity values, as shown in the figure. So here comes the analytical, the quantitative comparison using MCR and AMI. Comparing with the existing methods, the proposed method giving less values, less MCR values, at the same time higher NMI values compared with the comparative methods. So and also we compared the Gaussian noise, the robustness of the proposed method for different values of Gaussian noise. So that is, we are adding values to the data sets and then check the robustness of the proposed method. Even though the proposed method, the comparing with the state-of-the-art methods, it produces very good results. Finally, of course, the L-half regularization has a better convergence by using the iterative half thresholding algorithms. Also, this ADMM has a convergence rate, and here we propose the empirical convergence. In between 10 to 20 iterations, the algorithms offers a better convergence rate, and the execution time of the comparison of the algorithms also has been made. So the conclusion, the method proposes a robust tensor-based low-rank subgroup clustering for 2D imaging data with enhanced clustering capability. And the proposed method improves its clustering efficiency due to the unified structure that incorporates L-half induced TNN and L-half regularization. And it is evaluated using MCR, purity, and NMI metrics. And the experimental results show the improved performance of the proposed method over the existing method. And these are the references I have followed. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Am I audible, Jobin?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Will you go to your very first slide?
Right, sir.
Now, first title.
Yes.
You did work for the color images, is it?
No, sir. Grayscale images.
But you said somewhere R, G, and B independently you have carried out for independent plane or what?
Sir, I didn't get the question, sir.
No, you said in the second or third slide, you have used the word RGB. Red, green, and blue plane.
That's it. See, that's just a representation, sir. This one. See, I have just used, to represent the different type of clusters, I have just used that color. See, suppose we have 3 clusters. For the sake of simplicity, we can...
From that point of view, you have
yes,
used.
Yes.
So you are go to first slide, title slide. your work is related to grayscale images, is it?
Like it can be used for, it's simply data, sir. Can be
Yeah,
used for
right now it is for grayscale images.
grayscale images. Like we
Because
can.
you know, because you did it. Just I have listened in last 6-7 minutes, so I have to
Yeah.
understand what
Yes.
exactly you did. So
Yes.
have I got it correctly? You did it for grayscale images.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have used the L half for L1 norm
Yes.
for that calculation and regularization, is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you have compared all your results with the existing clustering mechanisms.
Yes,
Fine.
sir. Yes, sir.
My question is, when you did this calculation and computations, somewhere, as your aim is to go for that threshold value evaluation,
Yes, sir.
so somewhere you have calculated the distance,
Yes,
is it?
sir. Yes, sir.
Distance, or you can say difference.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
So from that point of view, you have used the L1 norm.
Yes, sir.
Have you not thought about the other norms or other mechanisms which are available for that difference evaluation?
Yes, sir. We have, of course, as you said, like we have Frobenius norm or the L2 norm or L1 norm, etc. But comparing with the L1 norm, already papers, they are saying that comparing with all these kinds of things, LHAF regularization is providing more sparse solutions. Like as I have mentioned in the unipole representation, that that solution that will be giving more fins. So there can be the solution plane can be touched to more places. So we
So
need to have.
you mean to say that based on literature, you have chosen the L1 norm?
Yes, based on literature, I have chosen the LHAB regularization. I
Okay.
already complied with
Have you ever heard the word Hausdorff distance?
what, sir?
Hausdorff,
No,
Hausdorff,
no, sir.
Hausdorff distance.
No, no, sir.
Just keep in mind, if
Ah,
there will be any scope, you can
okay.
note down this keyword Hausdorff, and
Hausdorff.
later you can explore your experimentation related to that.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay,
And
okay.
the data set, you have
Ah,
used the standard data set for
yes,
the computation, is
yes,
it?
sir. Yes, sir.
So the threshold value, what you got, you have calculated the threshold value
Yes, sir.
somewhere in a fourth and fifth slide. Can you go to that one?
Fifth slide, right?
Yeah, fifth or sixth slide. Next,
This
next,
is
next. Now next, 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 next. You got the threshold. 1 minute. Next.
I think.
Here. Get back, get back. Previous.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Here. Half thresholding operator you have
Yes,
used.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, yes, yes.
So you have evaluated this H lambda.
H lambda. These are the threshold values that we are providing it.
So
See,
what is the basis? What is the basis to decide this value?
Sir, what, sir?
What is the basis? As you
Ah,
said, now you are
yes,
providing
yes,
this
yes,
value.
yes,
What
yes,
is
yes.
the basis? For
See,
example, see 0
uh,
to 255. Okay,
yeah, I understood.
and
I understood.
if I love number 130, I
Uh,
may give 130, 130 every time.
yeah, yeah.
Was that the reason, or
No,
was there
no,
any
sir.
specific reason,
Yes, yes, this
technicality?
specific
Yeah.
reason is there. See, in half thresholding operator, in the works of one IEEE transaction paper, actually in LHAF regulation was implemented by Zeng and XU. These were consecutively in 2012 and 2014. So in 2014, the convergence of this LHAF regularization was experimentally found out by using iterative half thresholding algorithms. So in that paper, I mean, in that experimentation, they have said that when these values of threshold is too small, thus LHAP regulation is converged within less number of iterations. Based on that, different values of regularization, I mean, that lambda values have been given in the paper. And sticking on to that value, I've used in my work that is 0.3. That value is 0.3.
Your value is 0.3.
Yeah.
And what that threshold value indicates? Is it
That
having a direct concern with that gray level value? or is
No,
it some sort of multiplication factor?
yes, sir. Like it's just like, like for example, it's all done by means of iterations. No, so in kind of Hydrofob algorithm that we are considering mean square error, different iterations it will be finding out the a minimum of that function. No? So that regularization value depends on the direction of the iteration towards
Okay,
the
fine.
constant.
Fine.
Yes, sir.
Go to next slide. Next, where your objective function you have written
Yes, sir.
with the Lagrange's multiplier.
Yes.
Next.
Oh, okay, sir.
Here, previous one.
Yeah.
Previous.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
here. So your whole problem, this optimization, what you carried out,
No.
you went with single objective function, is it?
Yeah, single stage optimization.
And it is a minimization function.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
But is it constrained or not constrained?
This right now it is constrained.
And next slide. And next slide.
It is unconstrained, sir.
So why this so?
That is, I mean, we can, by use of augmented Lagrange method, we can convert a constrained equation into an unconstrained equation by using Lagrange multipliers.
Okay. Get back to previous. Now here constraint. How many constraints are there?
2 constraints, sir.
2 constraints. Okay,
yes.
You are subject to, you are mentioned there. Fine.
Yes, sir.
So it's a single objective multi-constraint problem. Okay.
Yes.
Or rather, you can say single objective constraint problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you use the Lagrange's multiplier to solve it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So whether you really did the optimization or you have formulated this problem as a optimization problem and then you have solved it by Lagrange's multiplier.
I mean, I have solved it separately and then worked it experimentation. That's the question. That's what the question, sir.
No. My question is, see, whatever the problem domain you have chosen, you have defined the problem.
Yes.
Then you have formulated that problem as a optimization problem.
Yes,
with
sir.
One objective of minimization and 2 constraints.
Yes, sir.
And then after formulating that problem as a optimization problem,
yes.
Then you have solved it by using the Lagrange's multiplier.
Yes.
This is what you did.
Yes.
Fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my suggestion is that as you have formulated the problem as an optimization problem with 2 objectives,
okay,
there is a scope to use the non-classical optimization method to solve this problem.
Okay.
You use the classical method, that is Lagrange's multiplier.
Yes, sir.
You did good, but I'm telling you the extension.
Yes, sir.
You can compare your results by conducting or solving this problem by using a non-classical optimization technique. Fine?
Okay.
Next, show me those 2 parameters, MCR and other one.
This one, sir. This one, sir. MCR and NMI.
Yeah. What do you mean by MCR?
That's a misclustering rate. Like it is 1 minus
misclustering rate. And NMI?
Normalized mutual information, sir.
How do you define this NMI? Normalized mutual.
Like if we have 2 objects, like so 2 objects or the 2 class labels. Okay. One is, in my particular project, like we have prior label, this one. And suppose after the means of clustering, we have get the total number of estimated clusters. Those 2 are 2 length. I mean, those 2 are the same length. So the number of common information shared between these 2 variables, it will be finding it out and then normalized by the total value. That is normalized.
Fine. You are pursuing your PhD or what?
PhD, sir.
PhD? Okay.
Yes, sir.
How many years till date you have spent?
I started from 2018. Right now, 2020. 3 years I've spent.
Okay. Means maybe on the verge of submission now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inspiring words and thank you all. Thank you.
Most welcome. Yes, Miss Richa.
So now move ahead. I would like to invite our next presenter, It's Dipashri Patil for presenting her paper on financial forecasting of stock market using sentiment analysis and data analytics.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Quickly share my screen. I hope my screen is also visible.
Yes, it's visible.
So, hello everyone, a very warm good afternoon. And I, Deepashri, I'm very excited and it's my pleasure to present our work on financial forecasting of stock market using sentiment analysis and data analytics in front of the jury in this World Forest Conference. So I, with my co-authors, Shivani, Patel, Shreya, and our guide, Sandhya Arora ma'am, we're working on this project since last 1 year. And to introduce the concept, so what is stock market? Stock market is where a lot of trading happens. People buy and sell their assets, equities. And we came to notice, this point came to our notice that news headlines, social media mentionings from Twitter, Reddit, and of financial reports issued by companies influence stock markets remarkably. And we felt that this needs to be automated because the manual work takes a lot of time, and by that time, stock trends change in an hour or minute, we can say. So the main aim of our research study was to combine traditional data analytics methodologies with the sentiment analysis to robustly forecast the stock market trends in future. So we have tried to combine natural language processing techniques to perform sentiment analysis on textual data and our data analytics methodologies for the stock prices. So moving forward to the literature survey, we have done a lot of literature survey, related survey, and a couple of papers are mentioned here which focus on the deep learning models as well as transformer pre-trained models, which give good accuracy score in sentiment classification for the Turkish stock markets, as well as these guys have done it for the top 10 and bottom 10 companies. So moving forward to the next study here, they have analyzed the stock price movement prediction using technical analysis and sentiment analysis. So from this study, we thought that our hypothesis holds good and there's a lot of scope for us to move ahead. So after that, who is our target audience? So we thought from their perspective, what are the difficulties and what are the questions they might have. So first target audience is the market researchers, market analysts, business analysts, technical analysts. So as we can see, this is one of the snapshots from our study. So we have like here we can see multi-layer passive from classifier prediction models. Here we can see the monthly, quarterly, and daily analysis, like sentiment positive to negative ratio. Here, this is the Twitter analysis. So these kind of data, raw text we had, and we performed analysis and visualized the results. And according to the trends, we forecast the market for the market price for the next hour. So the second target audience will be client investors who will be interested to know what are the top performing companies and the gain which they might get after the study and investing. So this is a quarter. Investment is most successful when it's most business-like. So this thought that might be relevant. So what all questions were dealt in our study? So looking from the top, it can be divided into two modules. So first would be textual sentiment analysis. So how does the media sentiment affect the stock market? Does it really affect the stock market? For what time frame or what criteria could be applied? What are the reliable data sources that we can trust and scrape data from? What steps should be taken to obtain accurate results? And most importantly, comparisons between classical machine learning and deep learning models. So this will come under the textual analysis. And secondly, for the numerical analysis, which approach should be followed, like for regression or time series analysis, for forecasting of the future stock prices, which of them performs better, how to obtain correlation between the textual analysis, textual results, and numerical analysis is the main aim. So first step to our study is the data collection. So we collected our news data from these reliable sources like Bloomberg, Google News, social media data from Twitter and Reddit. Mainly, we scraped this data from those websites using open source APIs like Tweepy and Rapid API. And the numerical data was readily available in a relational format on Yahoo Finance. And lastly, we scraped data from EDGAR website using SecAPI. It was of 10K filings for the company Apple. So the data sets after this for Apple Inc. For the particular time frame of 2020. So high level architecture of our system. So in the real world, we don't have annotated data always. So and that the annotating this much amount of data will take a lot of time. So we try to automate this process and trained our own sentiment classifier on Stanford Sentiment Treeback 104 data set, and we annotate the data using that classifier, and then we check manually that the annotation is done properly or not. And after that, we move on to our comparative analysis of classical machine learning models and deep learning models. And we get these findings from the models that are predictions, forecasting, recommendation of the companies afterwards. So to dig deeper in the proposed model, the data journey. So for textual data collected is kept in the master central repository. We perform some basic pre-processing techniques. We perform stemming, lemmatization, and most importantly, we perform spam tweets filtering, which increases our accuracy remarkably. And after that, all that cleaned data goes to our DLM forecasting model. So here we apply deep learning models, classical machine learning models, and we perform some experimentations on those hyperparameters, and we get the results. So these are the main results, like sentiment index, it's positive or negative, the polarity of sentence, text per batch, which would be useful in the next section. So this was about the texture data. And for the numerical data, same, we clean the data, we denoise it, we obtain it curated in the proper format, and then we pass it using multivariate regression models, deep neural networks. And after a lot of experimentation as well as studying, we have shortlisted LSTM model to finalize our forecasting and then correlate it with the textual results. So these are the results obtained. So on the left side, we can see the results of accuracies and all for the deep learning model. So as we mainly had skewed data, in real world, we don't have balanced data. So we performed and we analyzed the accuracies on different parameters, accuracy, precision, recall, area under curve. And from this table that we can see that our models perform really good. And comparatively, if we see in the deep learning model, we can shortlist LSTM model, it performs well in all the parameters. And on the right-hand side, we can see the performance of 13 different classifiers, and we can, just to highlight, support vector machine, random forest, boosting classifiers, decision tree, which are giving us accuracies around 90% on social media news as well as 10K findings. And after that, we have performed comparative results of word embeddings. So we have tried different word embeddings on the corpus center study. So that also gives a minor variation, but we wanted to try that. So we also went that deep and done that as well. So these are the few snapshots of our findings. So this is the positive and negative ratio of yearly analysis of 10K for the past 10 years. And here we can see the opening price of Apple stock. So as I said, this is on purely numerical data. So actual price and predicted price for the holding time frame on numerical analysis is also giving good accuracy. So the main aim of our paper was to obtain the correlation between textual and numerical analysis and forecast. So first graph shows to summarize this particular graph, this blue point should be positioned as close to the orange line, and that will show the strong correlation. So we applied some Pearson correlation statistical methods as well as different methodologies to obtain this correlation between them. And the last graph here, we can say the blue spikes are actual stock trends, and the red dots as well as this intersection, which will show that we have correctly predicted the stock direction. So to conclude, in this process, we have studied both the classical machine learning as well as deep learning methodologies, NLP techniques, and the experiments were performed on real world data sets. So SVM, random risk classifier, and decision tree classifier, as well as probability based classifiers. So they give around 90% accuracy, and deep learning models also give like near to 90%, and in those deep learning models, long short-term memory models showed the highest accuracy of 92%. After that, the correlation accuracy is 58% currently for the corpus under study. So we finally conclude that deep learning can be applied efficiently for stock market sentiment analysis, and LSTM model is proven to be the best on the textual data under study as well as numerical data. So what is the future work? So we propose that multilingual analysis for performing sentiment analysis is going to add value in future. And when we were performing the results, so we had a limitation on computing power, time, resources. So we suggest to optimize as well as we propose that, and to build models with higher accuracy and precision to show better correlation than that we have got till now. So these are the few references which we have followed, and I would like to get some suggestions as well as your comments on it. So these are my contact details. You can reach out to me anytime. So yeah, I would like to thank Richard, team, and Judy for patiently listening to my presentation. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Deepashri.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deepashri.
That's it from my side.
Okay, just tell me which tools you have used for the implementation, how you got your results.
So for the data collection and all, we wrote Python scripts only. So to collaborate effectively, we use the Google Colab, Google Drive for storage, and Microsoft Power BI for visualizing the results. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And how you have applied all these classifiers?
So we, like I said, we have done a lot of studies. So they have proposed some methodologies, as well as we went to the websites of sklearn and we read that material, and then we came with that. Why shouldn't we try all the classifiers and then see? So we wrote a script in the looping script.
No, I mean to say, have you written a code for
Yes.
example, AdaBoost classifier? Have
Yes.
you written a code for AdaBoost classifier, or have you used the available library for AdaBoost classifier?
No, available library from sklearn only.
Where from?
sklearn, scikit-learn.
Okay.
Yeah, and for deep learning, TensorFlow.
What you said?
Scikit-learn.
Okay. Okay, go back to the slide where you have mentioned before conclusion.
Okay. Snapshot?
Yeah, here in this bottom left diagram, yeah, data correlation.
Yeah.
Here you have said this line, correlation regression line, is more closer to that data, etc., etc. Can you tell me what is the standard value of correlation coefficient?
It should be within 0 to 1. It should not go beyond that, and we've got like 0.01 or 0.2.
Okay, something. 0 to 1. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
0 means worst or best, or 1 means worst or best?
1 is the best and 0 is the worst.
Okay.
Worst as in we should not get negative value.
No,
0 to 1 is
now
positive.
Here in this diagram, you got that line. Can you guess the results are better, best, good, or worst, or poor?
So we performed it on the daily correlation, weekly, monthly. So we visualize those graphs and
now just refer this diagram.
Yeah. So comparatively, these blue points were closely related to this line in this analysis only. and numerical also.
No, here just refer this diagram.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
a good
representing.
correlation.
It's a good correlation.
I mean positive, not yet good. Good as in not
Now
negative.
I have given you the 4 or 5 words: best, better, good, worst, poor.
I can say poor. It can be.
It is poor.
Increased.
It
Yes,
is
it's
poor. It is not worst, but it is poor. Still, it
Yeah.
is not good, not better, not best. Go to next. Your conclusion. Here the fourth bullet point, second line.
Yes.
Yeah, here correlation accuracy 58%. Okay.
Yeah.
It means 0.58.
Yes.
Okay. So 0.58, is it a good correlation? No.
No.
So you have to work on this.
Yes.
How to improve that one? In what way you can improve the correlation? So your correlation can get improved by discarding some data points, by discarding some outliers, and then you can fit. For example, just for instance, you have collected 10,000 data values, and when you plot it, a scattered plot, you can find there are some 100 or 200 data values which are far away from that regression line. So
Yeah,
those data points can be treated as a completely outlier, and you can discard them. Are you getting my point?
Yes, absolutely.
And so accordingly, you can improve your correlation accuracy. Okay. Fine. Thank you so much, and wish you all the best.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, Miss Richa, next one.
Now I would like to invite our next presenter. It's Brijesh Kumar for presenting his paper on atherosclerosis disease prediction based on the feature optimization and ensemble classifier. I think Brijesh Kumar is not here. So we can move to shift our next presenter. Fatima Siddiqui for presenting her paper on latency equalization in an IoT fog model. Fatima, you may please start your presentation.
Okay, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, you are audible.
Am I audible too?
Just share your screen. You are audible.
Good evening, sir. Okay.
There might be some network issue, I think.
Yes.
Dipanshi, please share your screen.
Richa, can we go for some next one?
Yeah, no problem. Actually, I'm the next speaker. If you don't mind, I can start. I'm ready.
Miss Richa?
Yes, sir.
I'm ready.
Can we go for the next one? Mr. Paul Manuel is ready there.
Yes, I'm ready.
So dear presenter, please start your presentation.
Okay.
Whose screen is this?
Yeah, this is, yeah. Shall I start? Is it clear? My voice?
Your voice is clear. Just a minute.
Yeah. This is IoT-based smart government enablers.
Okay, proceed.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening to everyone. Now, I will talk something related to smart government. Now,
Who is the author of paper?
the author actually Sandoz Al-Anaizi.
Who are the authors of paper?
Two, Sandoz and then Paul, the two people.
Okay, fine. Proceed.
Two. Actually, Sandoz was supposed to speak, but she's not able to. She's actually committed to for another engagement. That's why I'm just delivering the lecture on behalf of her. Okay. Now, usually, any information system actually consists of three dimensions: people, process, technology. When it comes to government, of course, the same three dimensions, but the attributes are slightly different. That is public administration, technology, the third one, administrators and citizens. So usually a government information system is defined in terms of all these three parameters, three dimension. Now, each dimension has different parameters. For example, like this is a smart government. Now here, the author defines smart government in terms of certain parameters. Some parameters are under public administration and some parameters under technology and some parameters under people, that is administrators and citizens. So this is the normal definition. But here what we do, we are going to study each dimension separately. And this will, because we are going to just quickly revise the development of government information system from e-government and then mobile government and then the smart government and then the future government, how it is going to be. So in order to define those each definition clearly, we have to focus each dimension separately. We will look at this one. For example, now here we look at two dimension, technology, public administration. Now, technology, look at the historical growth. Originally, it was traditional government, then it was e-government, m-government, and then s-government, which is smart government, and future, there will be something. Now, this is how the technology was developed. On the other hand, the public administration is admin-centric, service-centric, citizen-centric, and government 2.0. And then both will merge in some place, and that will be the future government. We do not know what it is. So now, so in order to differentiate this development, it is better we analyze the parameters individually. Now, so the smart government, according to our definition, it focuses only on the technology. Now, there is another terminology, government 2.0, that focus on public administration. Now, let us look at one by one. Now, this is a public administration. Now, historically, it was admin-centric. Admin-centric, it focused only the law and order, rule of law. And then service-centric, that is that the parameter here is a collaboration. That is how you are going to collaborate, citizen, business, government sectors, collaborate each other to provide good service to the people. And citizen-centric, here it is participation, citizen participation or citizen engagement. That's a citizen-centric. And the government 2.0 that talks about transparency, that is open data. Now, let us quickly just look at government 2.0. The history is beautiful. Actually, the original seed was planted by Abraham Lincoln. He started the famous slogan, the government of the people, by the people, for the people. That was the starting point. Then Obama gave a better white paper definition, and he introduced the concept of open government initiative. And he used a beautiful phrase, so putting the government in the hands of the citizen. Now, how you are going to do it, it's a philosophical concept. So he gave three principles, or he called three pillars: transparency, participation, collaboration, to build open government initiative. Look at this one: transparency, participation, collaboration. Here it is: transparency, participation, collaboration. This is exactly he talks about. But this is more philosophical. Then Rayleigh, he coined the terminology that is government 2.0. That is more the technical side. So he says government as a platform. That's what he says. That's a government 2.0. So this is the one side, that is a public administration, like historically how it was developed. Now let's quickly look at, go and look at the technology. The technology, the traditional government is of course the office hours. The e-government, anytime. M-government, anywhere. S-government, the smart government, anything. So that's a beautiful, the difference, the stage by stage, how it was being developed. Now, let us go a little more deep into the technology part. Look at this one. In the traditional government, it's only paper, landline, or fax. And e-government, it's a desktop computer, internet. M-government is a mobile, 5G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. And when it comes to S-government, so IoT, smart utilities, and big data, artificial intelligence, blockchain, there are a lot of other things. So this is the technological difference. So now, this is the reason we don't want to put all the eggs in one basket. So one of the objective to show the difference between the two, how the smart government is different from government 2.0. So there's a lot of beautiful difference. This is more philosophical. This is more technical. So that is what we want to emphasize here. Now, so we discussed until here, that is the technical aspect. And then we just introduced a model of a smart government. Now this is the base, like the landscape, and then the network, and the smart process. Now the smart landscape, actually, it's when it comes to the smart city, the landscape is very important. Kuwait University recently built a smart university, and the landscape alone, 2.2 billion dinar, it is almost more than $5 billion US. Just a landscape. The landscape is a key. And then you have a network, and then you have the process. And there are three steps here: the preparation, construction, maintenance. And then there are certain parameters under each one. So this is the model. Now we take this model, and then what we do, like in the smart government, we study the impact of certain parameters on smart government from the perspectives of Kuwait. So now three technical aspects. So as I told you, like we study the parameters separately. The parameters related to technology, parameters related to public administration. So two different things. We did not mix the three dimension each other, and we I'm sorry. So here is that there are only we consider three aspects of technology. One is interoperability, and then the maintenance and the security. The interoperability is a key. Now, when we talk about a smart government or smart technology, the smart technology is built on big data, cloud technology, and then IoT. Now, all these things, especially IoT, the first thing what you need, interoperability. So here is the thing, when you build the landscape and the network here, you make sure it supports interoperability. It's a very key thing. You have to, it's almost the base of the smart city, smart government. And security and maintenance, those are the three key things. And that is what we just focus. This is, I don't need to explain what is interoperability, what is maintenance, what is security. And so based on this, we study, we focus on certain things like how smart government, as I mentioned earlier, how smart government is different from government 2.0. And then what is the impact of interoperability on smart government? Actually, we study all these things from the perspective of Kuwait, because now lately Kuwait is spending a lot of money. It's a big investment in building the infrastructure for smart government. There are two big smart cities are coming up. So there are a lot of things, and even one big university. This is the world's first smart university, and that's in Kuwait. And the total construction cost more than $10 billion US. So they are spending billions of dollars. So this is one small project, like the technical from the technical aspect, not from the public administration. So that's why I said we do not put all the parameters eggs in one basket. So these three, how they make impact on the development of smart government in Kuwait. That was the objective. And then some data were collected. And the conclusion, the security actually is the biggest issue. The maintenance is the next one. The interoperability actually plays a minor challenge. So this was the conclusion. And then there are other parameters also discussed, but this is the main outcome of the project. So I think I'm going to conclude here. Hello. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I conclude here.
Okay, have you concluded?
Yes.
Okay, is it just simply formulation sort of or study-based thing you have carried out?
Yeah,
so
this is actually.
Have you designed this model at your own?
Yes, this model is ours. Actually, it is for this project. Of course, this is a big project. A small part of it actually to study a few parameters, like how much it is going to cost, the impact on the development of a smart government in Kuwait. So
okay,
that
fine.
is.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Yeah, Miss Richa, please next.
So we can announce a name of Fatima Siddiqui. I think Fatima is ready for presentation. Fatima, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I'm ready.
please, Fatima, you may please start your presentation.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Okay, please proceed.
Is my screen visible? Ma'am, my screen is visible.
No, right now it's not.
Okay. Now, ma'am.
Yes, your screen is visible. Please start.
Yes. So my topic is latency evaluation in a fog IoT model. The authors of this paper is me, Hiram Fatma Siddiqui, and then my guide, Dr. Sandeep Kumar Nayak, and Mohammad Faisal, Dr. Mohammad Faisal. So, paper is based on three technologies, that is cloud computing, fog computing, Internet of Things, and latency, how latency occurs whenever we are communicating any data to the model of this collaborative model of cloud, and I have put a focus upon this thing. So Internet of Things has imposed its influence over everything today, which exists digitally in nature. Digitally means everything that is existing electronically, or something that is based on sensors. So these are the things which can be said as Internet of Things. So whenever the data is being passed from these IoT devices, maybe a laptop or smartphone is there, or any kind of wearable device that has a sensing capability or computing capability, is going to the cloud. But whenever the data is requested for any kind of decision making, then latency occurs, because IoT is a distributed technology and cloud is a centralized technology. So how the latency occurs and how we can cure this negative factor with the maximum use of this technology in this current era, that is Internet of Things, has led to the generation of massive amount of data, because everything today is based on this IoT technology, and management of such huge data volumes is not possible by only if you are using the cloud IoT platform, then that is not possible for this. And latency occurs, even high latency occurs, and the communication, the whole communication and transmission model may get prone to a failure, and this may be disastrous for the real-time applications like healthcare is there, banking is there, transactions are there. So it will be very disastrous if such high latency will occur. For this reason, fog computing has been introduced, which is highly reliable and somewhat low latent technology. It is a kind of layer which is induced between the cloud layer and the IoT, and most of the things get processed, get computed at the edge only. They don't get to the cloud for the further
Dear
processing.
presenter,
However,
dear presenter, sorry for interrupt. Right now, your slide is visible is overview slide. Is
okay, ma'am.
yes, please continue.
Okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry for that. So this technology, that is the fog computing, is a new technology which is still in its initial phase, and still it is facing a lot
So we can wait for a 2 minutes and then we can call our next presenter.
Okay, fine. It's better go for next.
No worries, sir. Fatima, please share us a recorded presentation on a conference website. It's a technical issue. It's okay. Now I would like to invite our next presenter. Is Sagrika for presenting her paper on a review of various techniques used in the implementation of lane departure and a road detection. Sagrika, you may start your presentation.
All right, thank you. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
All right. Hello, everybody. A very good afternoon. So, like Richa mentioned, that I'll be talking about how we have developed a lane detection system with steer assist. And I'll be talking about that in the next few slides.
1 minute. What is the title of your paper?
So it's this: developing a lane detection system with steer assist and lane departure monitoring.
Miss Richa, you have read out some different titles. Richa?
Yes, sir. So it's a review of various techniques used in the implementation of lane departure and a road detection.
And that title is different and this title is different. Which paper we have accepted?
So the one that Richa has just mentioned that.
That one, then your title should be the same one here in presentation.
Right, I'll fix it. Sorry about that.
Fine, proceed.
Okay.
Proceed, Sagarika.
Yes. So basically, while developing safety road systems, we have realized that a lot of accidents occur because of accidents and traffic. So because we have an exponential increase in technology and there is so much advancements happening in the field of automations and vehicles, where we are also trying to develop driverless cars and autonomous vehicles. At the same time, we should also think about how we can use this rise of technology for a better safety standards, and also how we can make it more seamless and safe. So we decided to have a research and review papers and various techniques through which we can achieve this. This is a table which basically shows how important it is to think about road safety and develop procedures for the same. So there are countries like Germany and New Zealand, all these developed as well as developing countries such as ours, India, and then also USA and Japan, where technologies are more advanced. Classification for the detection techniques could be further categorized into two, one being on the left hand side region based, and the other on the right hand side feature based. So in feature based detection, what we're trying to do is on a road or on a highway, we have lanes marked for us. So we want to detect those such that the vehicle stays between those two lanes, and which basically enhances how the driver is driving, or an autonomous vehicle is working. So a feature based can further be divided into edge based and vanishing point based boundary detection. In an edge base, we can talk about, it's basically a simple mathematics function that we given as an input, where it basically approaches and measures the spatial gradient. So the image is in grayscale as an input, and the output that we achieve is the edges. And then it can work on first order and second order functions. In vanishing point, a group of parallel lines in a 3D space, it is always in an image or in a video. These lines will converge into one exclusive point, one pixel on the image plane where we can see the vanishing point. And then however, this technique has a small drawback. It is that if there are irregularities, we may face some problems. However, it gives accurate results in most cases. Then I'll come to the left-hand side where there are region-based features. Again, these can be diversified into two: textures and color-based. So textures is where the image has a few different textures. It is used in image segmentation and then processing for detecting changes onto the road. Then in color based, we are using color histograms. Color is basically a parameter for extracting information from the image. And then based on all of these and based on reviewing as well as seeing how these approaches work, we have concluded that these can be successfully implemented for driverless cars as well as road safety. That was my presentation. Thank you.
Hello, Sagarika.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening me?
Yes, sir.
Can you go to your first slide?
Sure, in a minute. My screen is visible.
What are you doing? Are you a student or faculty?
Yes, I'm a student.
Of master's, PhD, bachelor?
No, bachelor's, BTech.
Okay, you are in which year you are?
I'm in final year.
Okay, final year. In which university?
I'm in Guru Gobind Singh IPU University. It's in Delhi.
Okay, fine. Go to next slide.
Yes.
Next one. Next one. See, the first mistake you did in writing your title, paper title. Okay, you got it.
Yes.
Agreed?
Yes.
And what was your title which was communicated to conference? Review on?
Yes, it's a review on detection techniques.
No. What was this a title or something different? Review on road safety or something. What was the exact title?
For the one that Richa mentioned was our title.
No. What was that title? Richa, can you please repeat that title? Review on?
Yeah, a review on a various technique used in the implementation of lane departure and a road detection.
Okay, review on various techniques for lane departure and
road detection.
And road detection. Let me clarify you, Sagarika.
Yes, sir.
So writing this title is not sufficient because this diagram, which right now available on your screen.
Yes.
All this is related to the images what you are collecting for that road, is it?
Yes.
And based on those images, you are applying the segmentation.
Right.
And then segmentation is having these two types of category. One is region based, other one is feature based.
Yeah,
so
and also
the segmentation and the image, these two keywords should have been there in your paper title. Anyway, unfortunately, you have missed. Right now, you are in a graduation. You please mind it well. Whenever you will write your next paper,
yes, sir.
What are the contents are existing in your paper, your title should go in that way only.
Okay, I'll make a note of
the
it.
Title right now, what is existing in your slide, when I read out that title, I thought that you will talk something about civil engineering. And
Okay.
when Richa read out that title, I once again I thought that you will talk something about civil engineering, is it? But you talked
No.
about the image processing.
Yes.
Got it?
Okay, I understand.
Now another technical question to you. When
Yes.
you are explaining age detection based approach, okay,
Yes.
you said you have used two words, spatial gradient.
Yes.
Okay, it carries out the evaluation of spatial gradient. Then you have used another word, the first something first and something second.
Yes, a grayscale for input image, and then the output image is it has edges in it.
No, that is okay. The output
Yes.
edges you will get. But you
Yes.
said for the evaluation of spatial gradient, there are two techniques. One is the first, something you said, and the second. What that first and second means?
So sir, in edge detection based approach, it is basically whenever, like, whatever algorithm that we're using for the mathematical computations, those can be run on derivatives for first order as well as for second order.
Now you are correct. Because
Yes.
when you have presented, you have not said first order derivative and second order derivative. Basically, it is a filtering process. The
Yes.
first order derivative based filter and second order derivative based filter. Fine.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Richa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sagrika.
Thank you.
Reach our next one.
So in this session, we have a one participant who can present the presentation, and Fatima has also resolved the problem. So we can give a chance to Fatima.
Yeah, no issue, no issue.
Fatima, please, you may start your presentation.
Ma'am, I am audible now.
Yes, Fatima, you are audible, please. And speed up your presentation, please.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. My screen is visible.
Yes,
Yes,
Fatima.
visible. You just scroll down and go first, please.
Okay. So my paper is
You have finished this slide.
okay, okay, sir. So I was on this slide. Basically, I have induced the fog computing between the cloud computing and IoT technology. Fog has been introduced for the reliability to add up the reliability and to lower the latency that occurs between the IoT and cloud communication. So this is an introduction to the basic introduction to cloud computing. Cloud computing is a centralized technology, as we all know, that is used for the storage and processing of massive volumes of data. These data can be generated through the various IoT devices, various kind of data applications from the industries and so on. So these massive volumes of data are managed by the cloud computing. The technology facilitates its various subscribers with on-demand services. The subscribers or the clients have to avail the services from the cloud, like the services of storage, the services of networking, and so on. And there is basically three types of cloud computing we have: the public cloud computing, private, and the community cloud computing. And we can also combine it to make a hybrid of these cloud computing services. And the virtualization or virtual rooms, that basically what we are using today in this conference. So virtualization is the main working principle of cloud computing or any of the communication technology. Next is a simplified view of the traditional cloud architecture. Here the fog computing is not introduced. So the IoT devices were directly being connected to the cloud. Because of this, there were very much latency factor which was introduced in this communication model. and it is very disastrous for the time sensitive applications and time critical applications like healthcare applications, banking applications. And basically this is a traditional view of the cloud and IoT architecture. Next are the characteristics and challenges of the cloud computing. The characteristics, the first characteristic is pooling of resources. Pooling of resources, since cloud has an ample amount of storage in terms of ample amount of resources in terms of storage, networking, computation, and transmission. So there's a number of resources available which can be availed from by the various industries, companies, and organizations. The second is service on demand. Whatever the service you will be availing through the cloud, that service will be available as per your needs and requirements. It is very easy to maintain the cloud servers, and you can maintain the cloud servers very effortlessly. So there's a very easy maintenance in cloud computing. And there's a very high scalability in cloud computing, and it is also economical. The challenges we face using the cloud computing are the network issues, because the IoT devices is a decentralized technology and the cloud computing is a centralized technology, due to which we face network issues. The second is virtualization. Because of virtualization, the storage overheads and the computation overheads aggregate and pile up. So virtualization is although it is a enabler of cloud computing, but virtualization is a challenge today in cloud computing. The third is infrastructure. Infrastructure basically pose a challenge whenever we are managing and dealing with heterogeneous types of data and devices. Deduplication of data, because as we all know that cloud computing, whenever the data is aggregating, the data is not filtering, we can receive redundant data. So we have to deduplicate it. So in this kind, deduplication of data is a challenge in cloud. And connected platforms, there are many connected platforms which are associated with cloud computing, and intercommunication, intra-communication is a challenge between them. The second is the second technology which I have introduced is fog computing in my paper. Fog computing has been introduced as a cure or as a minimization factor for the traditional cloud IoT model. The fog layer resides between the IoT and cloud layer. Fog computing pushes the storage and processing demands of IoT devices at the edge only, because most of the data is being stored and computed at the fog servers only. Either maybe a laptop, either maybe a server, either maybe an embedded server, and so on. So most of the data is being processed at the fog only, and only the long living or historical nature of data is getting to the cloud. So the data is the data is reliable. It is posing less security threat, and it is low latent. By doing this, it provides high reliability and low latency. Since most of the data gets processed at the edge only, the data gets less prone to security threats and data loss is reduced. Fog servers reside at a very proximate locations as compared to the cloud servers, which are at very long distances. This is a architecture or the working model of the fog nodes. The centralized cloud, before the centralized cloud, the fog layer has been introduced, and whenever the data is generated by these massive IoT devices, massive amounts of IoT devices, these are first managed by the fog servers, and then only some of the data, extensive data, is forwarded to the centralized cloud. These are the characteristics and challenges again for the fog computing. The characteristics of the fog computing is that is it lives at the edge. It is very proximate to the edge. That is, suppose we are using our IoT device, that is a smartphone, and there may be some distributed fog server at a very proximate location. So any kind of data exchange and data transmission is taking place by that fog server. Second is location aware. It is aware of its location. It can derive its location also, and it can track the connected IoT device location also. The third is time sensitive service delivery. Since it is a very low latent technology, it delivers the services and the data requested at a very time critical factor. The fourth is edge analytics. Edge analytics means most of the data gets processed at the edge or at the device location only. And fifth, it is also a very scalable technology. The challenges which the fog face are data aggregation. Data aggregation means that most of the data and a high volume of data may be generated at the same time. So filtering these data, computing all these data by a single fog server is a challenge. Then the second challenge which is faced by the fog computing is task offloading. Task offloading is not at all very equal to all the fog servers, and many of the work have been
Fatima,
done
you
through.
are running out of time. Please
Okay,
try to
okay, sir. Okay,
conclude.
sir. So these are the challenges: task offloading, fog network formation, peer-to-peer transmission, and resource limitation. These are the various challenges. And the third the third technology is the Internet of Things, as we know, IoT. This technology is known to connect almost anything which exists with sensing and communication capability. A laptop, smartphone, or any kind of wearable digital device are the basic examples of the IoT devices. The IoT technology works on these resource and storage constrained devices in collaboration with the cloud and fog servers. Now, in this current scenario, IoT is providing very much business, very much awareness and informative support to almost each and every being around the globe and by connecting almost everything. Some characteristics of IoTs are connectivity, things, data production and collection. Things get talking and becoming intelligent by the use of sensors and actuators. And the challenges which are being faced by IoTs are the inter-module data dependency, highly heterogeneous with low interoperability, blending of the new technology with the existing technology, latency because it is working in collaboration with cloud, and the complex IoT environment. Now, what is the role of latency in this model? Latency has become a very negative and disastrous factor in any technological environment for in terms of communication and computation. Data which reaches after requested time is of no use. Thus, delivery of data has to be very time critical and is basic need of today's scenario. There are numerous causes due to which latency occurs in computation, data, and communication from source to destination. And I have focused upon 5 kinds of latency, 5 kinds of types of latency which may occur in this model. First is the propagation latency, transmission latency, processing latency, service and queuing latency. These are the related works done, a table of related works done, which was done in past to minimize the various kinds of latencies in the IoT fog model. Thank you. My presentation is over, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Fatima. You just carried out a study of fog model, how it improves the latency. Is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yet no experimentation have been carried out. Fine.
No, no, sir. Not now, since it is my
Okay, fine,
initials of my PhD.
fine,
Not
fine.
now. I have been being
Okay, fine. Thank you
done.
so much.
Okay,
And
thank you.
always do try to curtail the things. No need to read each and every slide. What you would
Okay,
like to communicate within some 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Okay.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. I will
Okay, Miss
remember this.
Richa, next one.
Yeah, I will call our next presenter. Is Shreya Radhakrishnan for presenting her paper on urban squirrel assessment using remote sensing and GIS techniques, a case study of Iran-Kullam district.
Shreya.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
Shreya, you may start your presentation and please
Okay.
speed up your presentation.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Please let me know if you're able to see.
It's visible. Please start.
Okay. Good evening to all. Myself, Shreya Radhakrishnan. I'm here to present my research paper on the topic Urban Sprawl Assessment using Remote Sensing and GIS Techniques, a case study of Ernakulam district. Moving on to the abstract. Let's see, urban sprawl is seen as a huge global challenge, which primarily affects all emerging countries and with large population, and we know India is no exception to it. So the outcome of urban sprawl is basically uncontrolled wiping of natural resources and creating fluctuations in land surface temperature. This in turn influences climate change by causing heat waves, droughts, and other extreme weather events. So the present study uses the spatial analytic techniques of remote sensing and GIS, that is Geographical Information System, to assess the urban sprawl in Ernakulam district of Kerala, India. Here, the indices of vegetation index, build-up index, as well as land use, land cover, and LST has been calculated to better understand how build-up areas and vegetation impact the surface temperature. So from the observations using the Landsat 8 images from 2014 and 2020, it showed that build-up areas have expanded by 2%, while water bodies have decreased by 1%. During the same period, the maximum land surface temperature, shortly known as LST, climbed from 34.3 degrees Celsius in 2014 to 43.16 degrees Celsius in 2020. So without proper urban planning, such increasing surface temperature coupled with unchecked urban growth can harm the environment and quality of our life. Hence, an effective urban growth plan is required to limit urban sprawl. These are few images to just understand what exactly an urban sprawl is. So as we can see from the images, it is just the uncontrolled growth of build-up areas in a particular location. Now, what was observed in Ernakulam district? So the motivation from this work was basically from a news article that I read from Hindu, where the article stated that Kochi, the port city of Ernakulam district, has its own urban heat island. So basically these islands occur due to the unusual heating of urban areas due to the excessive growth of build-up. So this makes the place look more like a concrete forest. Now, Ernakulam district is one of the fastest growing districts in terms of urban population. Though it had a very slow pace of urban growth until 2001, in the following years, it grew rapidly, and about half the population of the district is urbanized. Now, in this work, urban sprawl evaluation for the district is performed, revealing the relations between LST, that is land surface temperature, and land use, land cover. The indices such as build-up index and vegetation index were calculated to verify the density of the vegetation and build-up that was seen in the generated land use, land cover maps of the area. And also it is noted that several release sources state that land use, land cover has a direct impact on land surface temperature, which means that if the green cover is more, then the areas are much cooler, which means lower LST, and vice versa if build-up areas are more. So as said, the period of study chosen for this work is from 2014 to 2020. Now let us have a look at the maps. So as we can see in the land use, land cover map, those areas which are that is on the left hand side, those areas which are in red color represents the build-up area, and those areas in green color, in different shades of green, shows the different types of forest. Now, if we look at the land surface temperature map on the right hand side, we can exactly see that the build-up areas which are in red color is noted with high temperatures on the right hand side on the land surface temperature map with a maroon color, and those areas covered by forest or greenery has much a moderate or a very low land surface temperature. And also we can see that in the 2014 land use, land cover map, the urban areas are not very much spread out when compared to the next map that I'm showing, the land use, land cover map of 2020. Here, the urban growth is more dispersed and spread across all the regions. And also we can see similar results, that is in the urbanized areas, it's more of high LST, and in the forested areas, it is moderate or low LST. So the changes that was observed in land use land cover from the period of 2014 to 2020 are as follows. As we can see, the buildup has increased by 2%. The water body or wetlands in the particular region has decreased by 1%. Forest has improved by only 1%, whereas agriculture or plantation has reduced by 3%. The barren land or wastelands has increased by 2%. Now, what can be understood from these results? Actually, the loss in agriculture or plantation area that we have seen, and also the increase in barren land and unculturable or wasteland may be owing to high levels of soil erosion that was caused by the Kerala floods in 2018. And this is also one of the reasons why in the 2014 land use land cover map, we can see that the build-up area was quite dense in certain areas, whereas when we look at 2020, it's more spread out, but that the dense feature has lost. This is because during the floods, large amount of build-up areas, especially near the lake, that is the Vendanad Lake, was destroyed. Because the Cochin area comes under the Periyar Basin, which is the worst affected basin during the floods. So, okay, the maximum recorded temperature from LST map, as I've told before, it's 34.3 degrees Celsius for the year 2014, and 2020 it was 43.16 degrees Celsius, and it's precisely occurring in areas with most buildup. And these areas, which are particularly close to major towns and cities, as listed, and in both years what we could see that the places with high green cover appear to have held back the rise in land surface temperature. And the difference that we can see in the lowest recorded temperature of 2014 and 2020 is around +5 degrees Celsius, and the difference between the maximum recorded temperature is around +9 degrees Celsius. So the rise in this maximum temperature could be attributed to the increase in urban heat island, which in turn is caused due to the increase in build-up area and coupled with the effects of climate change over the years. Now, the increase in urban area or the increase in urban growth is also supported by few findings that was done by a study conducted by academicians from the IIT of Kharagpur, where they have shown that for the years between the years 2002 and 2013, there is an increase of about 6% of urban cover. Now, the conclusion from this work is that the increase in densely populated areas and industrial zones produce the hotspot for urbanization, leading to the sprawl development. So what is mostly recommended by scientists while we have a city development happening is that to conserve the existing wetlands and maintain vertical gardens on metropolis. This can actually trap the heat. And also, it is saying that when there is this phenomenon of urban sprawl, there are many other significant difficulties that occur. For example, like greenhouse gas emission, air pollution, traffic congestion, etc. All this contribute to climate change. And also it is seen from a few reports that Kerala was steaming during the second week of February 2020 due to the exceptional heating of the sea and land caused by global warming. And what is contributing to global warming? Again, factors like urban sprawling and many others. So reducing the impact of urbanization on climate change is critical for long-term development. So such focused policy action at all levels of the government is urgently needed. And such decision-making is also critical for attaining the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal and for achieving the Paris Climate Agreement target. So these are few of the references. Thank you so much. I'm open for the question and answer session.
Yes, Shreya.
Yes, sir.
Your paper is a study paper.
Sir, study paper in the sense you're asking whether it's just literature work?
Yeah, you have just collected the information, compiled it and presented, or have you carried out some experimentation?
Yes, sir. So actually I have done the experimentation, that is generating the different maps. So I have actually downloaded the satellite imagery to perform the analysis. That is how I have generated.
Where from you have collected the images?
Yes, sir. I have downloaded the Landsat 8 imagery from the USGS site.
Okay. Have you not ever visited any regional remote sensing center?
Sir, actually, I was doing the work during the pandemic time. So the state remote sensing center is at Trivandrum, and I'm from Kannur, which is from the north side. So I've not visited, sir.
Not visited. Have you contacted them?
Yes, not exactly for the project, but during other studies I have.
Okay. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, one question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Being though you have contacted to regional remote sensing center, not visited that one, but at least you know the size of the image which is collected by regional center, regional remote sensing center. What is the size of the image, or whatever the images you have downloaded? Can you tell me the size of the image in terms of resolution?
Oh, okay, sir. Actually, sir, if I'm talking about the resolution, actually, it's the what can I say? The spectral resolution, sir. Actually, the Landsat 8 imagery has 11 bands. So,
Okay, fine. Thank you.
okay, sir. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you for giving the opportunity. Thank you.
Yes, Richa.
Yes, sir.
I think no one is left to present and no one is left to listen me. Everyone is gone.
No, sir, Shreya is here.
Only Shreya, you and me.
Yes, sir.
Actually, we have to told them very initially, like after your presentation, you have to be there to listen the others. Because
Yes,
there
sir.
is no
Next.
meaning, na. If I am going to conclude, who will listen me? You and me only.
Yes, sir. And so, Kit, then we have completed all the presentation, and thank you, authors, for their excellent presentations. And again, I sincerely thank you to a part of this international conference. I hope this session was informative, and all the presenter would be getting digital certificate within 2 working days. And we have already forwarded all the papers to the Springer and the IEEE, and publication will be live within 5 to 6 months. Kindly cooperate with the team of World is Sport. And I also thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time and presence. And I request to my team to share certificate. So it's a token of appreciation for a team of World is Sport and the Global Knowledge Research Foundation.
1 minute, just hold. Have I clicked the photograph of it or not? Yes.
I kindly request to everyone to turn on their camera to take a quick snapshot for making this conference more memorable.
1 minute. No one is left. Who is there in Team World? Mohit is not there. Who is there, Richa?
He's Harsh.
Harsh. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, where is Amit?
Sir, Amit sir is a different session.
Okay, ask Jobin to come on camera.
Jobin, please turn on the camera.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, that's great. At least we can keep the memories with us. Yeah, Jobin, your work was good. I like it.
Thank you, sir.
And just add those what I told you. If you enhance it in that direction, non-classical optimization, because you did a lot of mathematical work.
Yes,
that
sir.
will be good. That will be good.
Okay. Thank you.
And if any query, if anybody want to ask me anything, you are free to ask me. I just drop down my mail ID in chat box, so you can send me the mail at any time.
Okay, sir.
Just mention the conference title in the reference. 1 minute. See that Thakur Nishvis at rediffmail.com. At any time you can drop me a mail. Just write in subject the conference name. So what I will come to know that you are connected with this conference. So is everything over, Richa?
Yes, sir. It's all over.
Okay, so nice of you all. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you
Richa.
so much,
Thank
sir.
you,
Thank you,
GR
sir.
Foundation. And convey my regards to Dr. Amit
Yes, sir.
Joshi
Sure, sir.
and Mihir.
Yes, sir.
And one more is, I forgot his name. But not, what his name?
It's Aman Barot.
Aman,
Yeah. Let me ask you a question.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. Yeah, please.
Like, is it the recording? Can we have the recording sessions for all these things?
Yeah, all recordings will be live on 15 to 20 days on the conference website. You can go through the conference website.
The things, the inspiring words by sir. I just
We
need
try.
that.
We can try to as soon as possible. We can upload the all recordings to a conference website.
Even
Thank you, sir.
Jobin, you can drop me a mail, and at least we can have some sort of collaboration in future. Because my basic domain is
Okay, sir. Thank you.
non-classical optimization, and is the main concept area where I'm working. Nature-inspired computing,
Okay,
non-classical optimization, and my application domain is image and video processing. I
Okay,
did
sir.
data
I'll
analysis, applied
definitely-
everything there. Image and video is a very big domain. You can drop me a mail,
Yeah,
and
sir.
as you are in need of some kind words from my side, which I spoken 2 minutes before, the same words you can get on mail.
Okay.
Fine. So thank you,
Thank you.
Shreya, Jobin, and
Thank
what you
you, sir.
said his name, Harsh,
Harsh.
and Richa.
Sure, sir.
Have a
Thank
safe,
you so much.
have a safe stay, and hope for the best for the coming days in India. Okay. Chalo. Bye.
Okay,
Jai
sir.
Hind. Bye. Can I leave the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Richa?
Sure, sir.
Fine.